whatever, do anything in life, right? Because the odds are always against you. And yet people do miraculous things all the time. You know why? Because they don't play their life by the numbers. I think it's just dangerous. You should never tell a kid the likelihood and chances statistically of you ever accomplishing this thing is really low. So just don't try. Screw that.
Welcome to this week's episode of Teaching Keating, talking about the Masters, Molly.
Yeah, we are.
I know we're a couple weeks out from the Masters.
We watched it. Well, you watch it pretty consistently.
False.
Really?
False.
Okay.
I will sit down on Sunday to like absorb the Masters, but it's really nap time.
Okay.
I haven't watched the Masters like I did on Sunday since like Primetime Tiger.
Yeah. I feel like you watch the U.S. Open and the Masters. I think those are the only two you care about, or maybe those are the ones you turn on. I don't know.
I'll watch if there's a good storyline.
Okay,
but
that sounds
I'm
correct.
not like a golf fan.
No, Waste Management Open to see all the crazy people.
The Waste Management just to see the wildness on that par 3.
Yeah,
but like this one.
It was pretty riveting.
This one hit me.
I think I turned to you during that time and I said, I feel like I'm watching the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals right now.
Yeah.
Like it was so intense. I kept getting up and like walking around in the kitchen because I was having anxiety because I'm like, oh man, if Rory McIlroy doesn't win, I might melt down. It's too much.
I think that's why a lot of us watched it.
Yeah.
It was just number one, a lot of us were rooting for Rory. The dude's been trying for
11 years.
11 years.
11 years we're gonna talk about it.
To win the Grand Slam, the Grand Slam of golf.
Yeah.
And whether you know what that is or not, like the fact that he would persevere all of that time and keep his game at such a high level, like it's going to be the crux of what we talk about today, like the notion of like, hey, when to persevere and when to quit.
Right.
And Rory McIlroy gave an absolute masterclass
and was like holding on till the end too. Like it was so dicey until like they had a playoff, which I'd never seen before in golf. And there's this other British guy who he knows relatively well because they're both like in golf terms, like they have the Ryder Cup and that's the Americans against everyone else. And so they're like Ryder Cup friends and they're always on the same team and all the different whatever. So they know each other quite well and their wives were standing together, which I thought was kind of weird, but whatever. Maybe they're pals.
I think there were 3 people who were not rooting for Rory McIlroy and it was what's his name? Justin Rose's wife, his mother, and your brother.
Oh yeah.
Your brother Mark.
My brother doesn't love Rory McIlroy.
Your brother Mark is still fighting the American Revolution.
Yeah, but Justin Rose is British, so technically that wouldn't really matter. But okay.
Yes.
Sorry,
he was
just
rooting,
doesn't love Rory.
He was rooting for Bryson.
Yeah,
because Bryson's an American.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm not rooting for any of these redcoats. And I was like, okay,
he does
take it
call
easy.
them that too.
Yes,
he's a little bit ridiculous.
He's the only person in America still using redcoats.
Yeah, I still think I don't know. Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, people think he's a dirtbag. I kind of agree. I don't know. He's a little too bro-y for me. He has a very popular YouTube channel and he does a lot of stuff really promoting himself. He's still wearing Reebok, which I thought was strange. I was like, oh, are we in 1988? What's this guy wearing on the tee?
No offense to Reebok, but rough. His the shoes and the logo that he has, like, because that's his sponsorship.
Yeah,
it was brutal.
It didn't look great. It wasn't the best I'd seen out of there.
Brutal.
Yeah, and then juxtaposed is Justin Rose wearing he didn't wear Travis Matthew. Who's the really spendy one?
Peter Millar.
He had like all his Peter Millar. I was like, yeah, good job.
And then there's Rory just decked head to toe in all his Nike gear.
Yeah,
his shoes were awesome.
Excellent sponsorship.
Charlotte came down, watched the Masters for about 12 seconds just to comment on Rory's shoes.
She's like, oh, look at those pink Nikes.
Back off. She's like, look at those pink Nikes.
Slay,
Rory, slay. Yeah, and then back up to her room.
But it's I mean, we talked about it during the Masters, but I thought I wanted to podcast about it just because I was like, when should you throw in the towel? This guy, he had a lot of success really early on. He was super young. Everyone said he was like the next Tiger. He was his history is very similar to that too. He's an only child. His dad and his mom took him to the course, like where he lived in Northern Ireland. He's been, golfing since he was a really little kid, like 3, 4, like they were showing videos of him. Like he's been around and they sort of have bred him. And so he had a lot of success really early, like early 20s. And he won a couple of I want to say like big tournaments really early on in his career. And then he hasn't won for a while. And then it's been a giant dry spell.
I think this is the cool part about watching professional athletes.
Yes.
It's not in their DNA to throw in the towel.
No.
But also I don't know that they're the best exemplars for, us mere mortals.
Right.
Of course, Rory's not going to throw in the towel on the Masters.
No.
He's leading the Masters.
Right.
And even when he wasn't leading, he's a couple shots back. Like he's not throwing in the towel.
But it's not like he hasn't played it every year since. Like he's literally played the tournament every single year since the last time. So there's been an 11-year spread, and he's played the Masters every single year. I don't even know if he's made the cut every year. Probably should have done some history. But he's played it. He's played the tournament every single year.
And all the post-game interviews, like with his buddies and stuff, were like, this is all he thinks about.
Right.
Like the Grand Slam of golf, winning the Masters.
Yes.
It's the one major he hasn't won.
The Grand Slam he cared less about. He wanted the Masters.
To win the Masters.
Yes, because he won some earlier majors. But it had been a really long time. I don't know. So I'm so interested to hear your perspective about this, because I have a lot of thoughts. And I think a lot of it, to your point, you just said there's athletes in general sort of live on a different spectrum than the rest of us mere mortals, because he is definitely one of those. I can't imagine what it's like being married to him. He's in the space for me, like the Jordan, the LeBron, the Tiger, where it's so all consuming and kind of a compulsive personality that I feel sorry for his wife and who's married to him. It's a whole, you really have to know what you're signing up for.
He's one of only 6 people who has ever played the sport of golf to accomplish this thing. Very
impressive.
Yes.
The Grand Slam.
So he's up there.
Yes.
Like if you're building a Mount Rushmore of golf, he's probably on it.
And they said he's older, but he's only 35. And they were like, in comparison to the other 6, they won it really quickly. But you have to remember, Tiger has it, but this was before social media, even for Tigers. It was way before social media. So the amount of crap this guy has taken and how much pressure, and to continue to go, that's the part that fascinates me of why are you, he's still going.
I am excited.
I do. He's fiery. If you've ever watched the Full Swing Golf part, he's on there, which is why I kind of like him a little bit more, because he's very human in his interactions. He's rowdy Irishman. He's funny. He doesn't come across like that in his golf presence and interviews. He doesn't really smile a lot. He's pretty much all business. But on the Full Swing, I really like him. I think he's a really affable, seems relatively normal human being. But he's still extra.
Correct.
I mean, he has to be.
I am excited to talk to you about this.
Okay.
Because of the two of us, you are the dreamer in our partnership, and I'm the realist in our partnership.
That's funny, because we just talked to Mark about this, and I think we reverse roles sometimes too. That's a side note.
And
in
so
some of those things.
I am curious. I am curious of your perspective, because when it comes to teaching and parenting, one of things that are told to kids all the time, hey, don't quit, follow your dreams.
Yes.
And I want to know what the difference is between making a strategic pivot and quitting.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't think you and I see this the same way.
Yeah. I think we have different perspectives. I mean, I know we have different perspectives on this, because I just think our brains are way different when it comes to this.
You come from this mindset where you don't think anything is off the table for you.
That is 100% true.
Ever. The number of times Molly has told me oh, I could have totally been on Saturday Night Live.
It is a goal up there. I really do think I'm funny.
Every time you say that, I'm like, what are you talking about?
You've never attended an open mic session ever. Why do you think that you could be on Saturday Night Live? I do. I mean, I'm good. I have good repertoire. I'm good with other people. Good funny people around. It really ups my funny game.
You've never done stand-up?
It's an ensemble.
You've never taken an improv class?
I mean, I did take one improv class in college, and I thought it was the worst thing ever.
The teacher
was so goofy. I was like, okay, I can't get on board with this. This is not for me. Just way too artsy, purple hair before purple hair was a thing in the late 90s. I mean, it was really,
that's the culture of improv.
No, it's not.
That's the comedic culture.
Because then you have people like Tina Fey. Anyway, Side note, I do.
Are you saying you're like Tina Fey?
No, I'm just saying she tends more towards the nerdy side of comedy rather than
Let's
like
start with
purple.
where that comes from for you, because I don't think.
Let's do talk about.
Because here's what's funny, like I have a profession where I'm in front of people a lot.
Yeah, you are.
And make them laugh.
Sure.
A lot.
Yeah, this isn't about you. This is about Rory.
And
yeah.
And I don't think ever, like, I should be on Saturday Night Live.
Because yours is practiced.
Where does that come? So this
Mine's
is
natural. It's true. I'm just a natural funny person, honey. You laugh at me all the time because I say funny things that like come out, and you're like, "Oh,
but they're
that
not
was
always.
a good one, babe."
But they're not always intentional.
Yeah, I mean, it's what goes through my brain and then comes out. I mean, I think that's what makes like Eddie Murphy really hilarious, and Tracy Morgan and Tina Fey and all these people. They just
You're putting yourself in some unbelievable company here.
I'm not saying I am one of them. I'm saying I don't believe in limits on a person. Period.
I do.
Full stop. Yes, you do.
Tell me why you don't.
I know. So I'm a realist in the sense of like, you need to practice your craft. I don't think you can just go, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast before, I will never be a rocket scientist, okay? I'm not the person who's helping Elon go to Mars. No one in this room is doing that. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think in terms of limits of human possibility, I think we put those on ourselves, and I think it's to our own detriment. And I think to your point, like when you see people like Rory McIlroy, who's like, okay, lucky number 11, let's get after it. And like, here we go again. And they don't have limits on themselves as a person. They have understanding that they have a full capacity and they have practiced a lot and they've worked on their craft, and whatever it is going to get them to their next goal. I don't believe in limits on as a human being. I just don't.
Where does that confidence come from?
I don't know. Ask my parents. I have no idea. Or my family.
That's not helpful at all.
I don't know. I just think it's detrimental. I used to tell my students, like, hey, it's really detrimental for you to put limits on yourselves. Now, that's not saying that you're going to be great at everything. No one's saying that.
All that used to run through my mind when I was a kid.
Yes. Okay, this might help.
When I was thinking about like, okay, what job am I going to have?
Yeah.
Was okay, what liabilities do I possess that might rule this out for me? So there was one point where I was like, you know, all the things that you think about when you're a kid. Sure. I was like, maybe I'll be a police officer. Maybe I'll be a firefighter. And this was all pre-GPS.
Okay.
And I was like, I can't be a firefighter because if I have to drive the truck, someone's house is going to burn down. Because I'm going to get lost. I'm not going to be able to find my way there. Well, okay, firefighter
off the list.
Out.
Yeah, no, I never thought like that. I still don't, honey. I don't. There's not anything that I think like, oh, I shouldn't entertain that. I think you can practice getting great at anything. Do I think I'm going to be as great? We'll take golf, for example. I like to golf. I'm a horrible golfer. Will I ever be as good at golf as Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods? No, I won't. I can get better. I can progress towards something. I think I probably, if I really worked at it, would be way better than I ever had expected.
You were never better at golf than when you were pregnant.
Yeah, we had a really,
your swing over that pregnant belly.
Yeah.
It was like
I did have like the round of my life.
It was like having a pregnant belly gave you the perfect golf swing.
It did, because it lowered me. Like the weight just was different. It really changed. Anyway,
like, oh my gosh, this chick's so good at golf. I mean, and then you gave birth, and it was
all
right
over.
back.
It was one magical round. But
yes,
it's okay. I'm just saying, if you work at anything, you work at your craft. Don't limit yourself. It's just I think
then
that's
at what point
detrimental to human beings.
Then what's the difference between quitting and making a strategic pivot?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me. Quitting is just giving up. You become hopeless. You no longer have hope in the thing that you were working towards. I think that's a straight up quit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think you just are hopeless around whether you continue on or not. I think your hope sort of dissipates. And
I'm not an advocate for telling kids to like follow your dreams. I think it's shit advice.
Tell me more.
I think you follow your talent. I think when you tell kids to like, if Everett loved basketball,
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, no.
Thank
he doesn't.
God.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but if Everett loved basketball and
Sure.
we were like, Everett, follow your dreams.
Yeah.
I want to play in the NBA. Everett, follow your dream. He's never going to play in the NBA.
I don't think you say that to kids. I don't think crushing little kids' dreams before they're old, like, sky's the limit. And then as you get older, you're going to figure out what you do well. And then you'll get more information as you go. And then hopefully you will move towards that. No one's going to have to tell you, because you're going to understand for yourself, like, okay, this may not be a thing I'm really great at. Maybe I transition to something that I'm really good at. Perfect example. Shar did gymnastics for a while. She really wanted to do gymnastics. And I was like, honey, your body's really different than mom's. I don't think you should do that. I didn't tell her, I didn't say you're not going to be successful at it. I was like, your body's just you're not short and compact the way that most gymnasts are, like your mom. I said, but let's do it. Let's try it. We'll give it a go. 3 years in, she did not like it. She wasn't having as much success. We pivoted to dance, and now she's moving through the roof. So a lot of it is, I think you have to let kids and give them time to understand like where their gifts actually are coming from. And then they'll start making those decisions on themselves. But I don't think it's up to the adults around them to be like, yeah, just don't even try.
To not even provide guidance. That's, your pendulum's swinging too far. The message isn't don't even try. So like, okay, I just gave the NBA example. Like, sure, that's not a good example. Yes. But like, let's go real life. I was just on the field coaching this morning.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, like on that team of players, you probably have 80% of kids who believe that they are Division I caliber football players. And okay. and the truth of the number that actually are is it's a single digit percentage or a fractional percentage.
Okay.
Now,
that's fair.
We have a lot of kids who are potentially really good Division II football players, FCS football players, but there's a difference between like, nope, give up on this dream versus like, hey, pivot.
Okay.
And ask yourself, like, do I possess the size, strength, and speed to be a Division I athlete? Or right now, am I trending towards
I just think that's a dangerous game to try to predict what your life is going to be in the future when you're a young person you don't know. Now, I'm not saying the adults around them shouldn't give them guidance, right? So like we're talking about Rory McIlroy. I'm sure a lot of people were like, hey, you're doing the Masters again on year 10. They were like, are you sure you want to do it? Are you sure you want to do it again?
I don't know if that was the messaging to Rory McIlroy.
I don't know. I'm just saying his agent might have been like, do you want to play another tournament?
But take the example of the kids.
Is this healthy for your brain?
Take the example of the kids that I just gave you.
Okay.
Like what in your eyes,
yes,
what is the conversation when you have a kid who is 6 feet tall, maybe 190. I'll give you my exact measurements as a
I don't
as a
want
high school
your
kid.
exact measurements because you and I disagree about this a lot.
If I'm 6'2" and 190 pounds as a high school kid, and I think like, hey, I'm a Division I defensive lineman. Like,
okay, that's not realistic.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I thought that it was.
No, it's not. I mean, that's not a realistic example. I'm
literally giving you an example from the real world.
Really?
It's me.
Oh, I thought you were still talking about your kids this morning.
But that's
okay.
This I don't want to single out. I don't want to single out a single kid that I coach.
Got it. That's fine.
But we have kids like that.
Yes, you were not ever going to be a lineman. You're not heavy or tall enough for it. All of that to be said. I did get heavy. You yes. Still not lineman heavy, but yes.
That neck was so thick.
Okay.
So many traps.
So I don't love it. We need to show our audience. We need some pictures of like when you're
playing
much
football. Hair. It was long. It was curly.
Like neck up here. Or
I was all traps up to my ears.
Yeah, you were something else.
Yeah, I got up to like 245, 250.
I know. You were a larger human being, and that's good. And you could carry the weight. But all of that to be said,
I still a large human being?
You're taking bird walks
jacked?
now. I need to get to the point here. You're so ridiculous. I just don't think it would have been healthy for me to tell you in this point, if I was the adult in your life, for me to tell you like, hey, I know you want to be a defensive lineman and you have a lot of talent, but that's not really on the table for you. But no one was taking away your football career. Do you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you're a little bit extremist is like, well, if you don't hit these numbers, you're never going to be this thing that you want to be in here. And you're too extremist.
But other adults,
hold on.
Other adults did. Hayden Fry, when he came to visit me, here's my recruiting visit with Hayden Fry.
Okay.
Hayden Fry, calls me down to the office.
That was a very famous football coach, everyone.
Head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Go Hawks.
Who no one remembers the show, but Craig T. Nelson's character in whatever that show was called was based off of Hayden Fry.
Hayden Fry calls me down to the office. Yep. I get a message that like the University of Iowa head coach is in the office, wants to meet with me.
Yes.
I'm so excited. I had worn my Doc Martens that day because they made me 2 inches taller.
Good thinking.
Pro move.
Well done.
Pro move.
Okay.
I walk into the office.
Sure.
Hayden Fry is sitting behind a table. He sees me walk in. He stands up. He walks out from behind the table, shakes my hand, says, "Fill out."
Yeah.
And then he left.
Yes.
And that was my entire recruiting visit with Hayden Fry. Okay. So that's an adult telling me like, hey, as it stands right now, this is not in the cards for you. It came as such a shock to me that I wish I would have had adults in my life who had moderated my expectations.
That's good feedback.
And helped me pivot.
Sure.
Not quit.
Yes.
But pivot.
But no one said stop playing football.
No, but what
That's
I'm saying
what
is,
I'm saying too.
What I'm saying there's a lot of space between stop doing this thing and modify your expectations.
I think that's really important for me to understand, because that really drives a lot of your behavior, because you're so measured in your expectations of the kids and like, well, if these things don't happen, then the likelihood that you're going to be here. And I just think that's a dangerous game. Stop playing your life by the numbers. Statistically, no one would ever do anything in life, right? Because the odds are always against you. And yet people do miraculous things all the time. You know why? Because they don't play their life by the numbers. I think it's just dangerous. You should never tell a kid the likelihood and chances statistically of you ever accomplishing this thing is really low, so just don't try. Screw that.
That's not the messaging. That's not you're taking my messaging to the extreme. I'll give you another example.
Okay.
So John Krasinski, who played Jim on The Office, he's talked about this in a number of interviews.
Okay.
Where he went out to Hollywood and he had not booked anything.
Yes.
For almost a year. Literally had booked nothing. And he was having a conversation with his parents. And I think it was his dad who said like, "Hey, John, like, the year anniversary is coming up of you making this move. If by the time a year comes, like you haven't booked anything, I think it might be time to move on." Essentially strategically pivot. I
think that's realistic.
A week before that year anniversary, he books The Office.
Right.
Do you think that's a negative message from his parents, or do you think that's a right message from his parents?
No, but I think it's different. But like, he sounds like I know a little bit about him. So he got into Brown and he's not like a real dummy. So I think they were like, hey, you should probably go back to college or even graduate. Like, that's the thing. I'm saying younger children. I'm saying little kids or even middle school or high school age kids. I think shitting on kids' dreams is rude. It's not the place of the adult around them. Now, I do think being able to recognize and be like, hey, your gifts it looks like you're really happy when you do X, Y, and Z, or you find a lot of joy in all of these and this specific type thing. That might be something to think about for your future. That might be something to look at. Like, I do think it's part of the responsible adult to sort of put them in the right direction, or just point out to them maybe things that they haven't noticed about themselves. That's something. I don't think you tell a 16 or 17-year-old because you haven't hit the exact weight number ratio here, you're not going to do the things you want to do in this life. I just think that's dumb. And there's too many experiences of people out there that has not been the case for. Cooper Kupp. You just sent our son a thing about Cooper Kupp, who plays football for the Los Angeles Rams.
I think,
is that right?
Yeah, this is the hard part though.
I'm just saying there's exemplars
for every Cooper Kupp.
Sure.
There's hundreds of people built like Cooper Kupp, who look like Cooper Kupp, who go down that path and they don't make it.
Fine, but that shouldn't be. But you can't play your life by the numbers. That's just a dangerous game. I don't think it's okay.
But I want to.
Honey, you can't predict that. I think it's unhealthy. I think having that mentality, like, to limit yourself before you actually get there. I understand being a realist.
Your threshold for risk is way higher than mine.
Yeah. Thank goodness we're married, because that's why our kids have both of us. Good.
Yeah,
shoot for the stars. Why not? What have you got to lose? Life, there's not enough risk in life. Granted, I'm not talking about recklessness. That's separate. I'm not talking about risky behavior or taking ridiculous risks. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying college, school, Relationships I'm a little bit more prudent on because I feel like the risk is higher because there's other people, it directly impacts other people. Not that your sports and your education doesn't, but it's less. It impacts you primarily as the person who's taking the risk. I just think it's worth it to be brave. Great things are done when kids are brave and work hard and push through things that they maybe don't think that they can do.
What we're talking about is risk reward.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll bring it back to the Masters for a second. I forget what hole it's on. Forgive me. Somebody will tell us. So there's a hole. I think it's maybe 13 or 17. 15? No, because 13 he goes in the water. Sure. So like 17, whatever. Rory drives it off the tee and he puts it behind this like group of trees.
Yes.
And so like he's behind the trees, he's in the rough and takes this big gamble and tries to hit this big sweeping draw out from behind these trees. And he does it like huge, like crazy risky move, hits this draw, knocks it on the green, big time reward.
Sure.
So like I'm interested in risk reward.
Yes.
Like, is there a time in your life other than marrying me where you took a big risk and it paid off and the reward was there? Or conversely, is there a time when you took a big risk and the reward didn't pay off?
Yes, sure. I would say, it's the same time. And I would say, so I quit my first couple years out of college. I worked for, I had a really good normal job for the federal government. And I quit that job to go help my college friend run his band. Like with some, and that was a big risk. And my parents were like, this is a horrible idea. Don't do it. Fred was adamantly against it. I had great insurance. I was making great money. I just, it was a normal adult job and I was doing well. And he was like, why are you doing this? And I was like, because I don't know what I don't know. And if I don't make this choice, then it will always be out there. I make it and it goes great. Or I make it and it implodes. And I ended up making it. It went great for a little bit, but then it ended up imploding. Things dissolved. The relationship went bad. I don't think it's a good idea to go into business with your friends. I just think, especially when you're young, but it seemed like the right decision at the time. It was a big risk. And then I had to go back to teaching and find another job and like had to piecemeal this whole thing together. And it was a giant mess, actually. And I don't regret it. I'm really happy. I'm happy with the experiences that I had. I'm happy with the learning. It didn't end up the way that I thought it would, and that's okay. That not everything does. And I was young enough, like I wasn't in a relationship. It didn't impact me so much where I couldn't like pay my bills, or it drove me to like really dire straits. It didn't. It was crappy, it ruined some of those relationships, but I don't regret it.
What was like?
Sure.
Was there like a recovery period for you after that? Because
what? Tell me more.
Because I'm saying like when I take risks like that,
sure,
and they don't work out.
Yes.
My bounce back,
sure,
is slow.
No, my bounce back was fast.
Yeah,
my bounce back was like.
This is why you and I see this differently.
Yes, my bounce back was like, okay, let's get after it. That didn't work out. I'm super bummed out about it. I'm gonna mourn it and grieve it and do all those things after I get home from work, but now I have to grind and I'm about to start substitute teaching and I'm about to start doing coffee and I got to still pay rent and all these things. And I just got back to work.
I'm more likely to marinate in it as a failure.
Yeah, no, I didn't at all. I was sad, don't get me wrong. And I felt really bad. I think things sort of imploded because I think, when things fail, people want to place blame. And so I think it was more batting it back and forth of like, okay, I'll own a couple of these things, but I'm not going to own all these pieces. You need to own some of this. And I don't know.
Whenever it's a failure, I own all of it. No. The failure is mine exclusively.
No, not when there's groups of people who all risk together. No. Well, sorry.
Good for you.
I mean, I don't know if it is or not, but I hope that people are emotionally mature and aware enough to be able to do it.
We're not.
I hope my children, I do hope okay. I love like all of the great things about you and they have some awesome stuff about you, but I do hope they track more like me in this one area.
I agree.
Specifically. But I just want them to I want them to be brave. I want them to be courageous. I don't want them to be scared to
I'm also
risk.
not risk averse.
No, you're not.
Right? So like my my risk reward example is right after college. Yeah. I took a huge risk.
Yeah, it was a gamble.
And I took a job teaching high school in Bermuda. And a bunch of you are like, oh yeah, big risk, working vacation. Like the hardest place I have ever taught, the hardest place I've ever worked with kids. I'm a kid from small town Iowa. Yes. and I moved to an island 650 miles off the coast of South Carolina of 60,000 people.
Do you feel like that was a calculated risk or was it impulsive?
Oh, so impulsive.
Okay.
It was
good awareness.
There was nothing calculated about it.
Oh, okay.
I had never left the country.
Okay.
I had never had a teaching job before.
Right.
I didn't know where, I couldn't point to where Bermuda was on a map.
Yes.
I would have pointed down in the Caribbean. And it was like,
people do think it's way south. Yeah.
It's the most uncalculated risk I've ever taken.
Sure.
And I got there and I got into the job and it was really, really hard.
Sure.
Like incredibly difficult.
Right.
To the point where like I wanted to quit.
Yep.
But I know myself and I'm just like, if I quit, I will carry this with me for the rest of my life.
That's how I felt the same thing when I quit my job.
As a profound fail, but I didn't quit. I stayed for 6 years till my work permit ran out.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just like, nope, I'm in it. I'm going to stick and stay and I'm going to make this pay.
And you did. And you got progressively better and a lot of people do leave after the first year. A lot of people don't make it.
Most people. So when we showed up, like the big joke was like year one, people are taking bets on whether or not like all the teaching staff, Christmas.
Oh, really?
Everyone's taking bets on whether you'll make it through Christmas. So much so that by the time I was there, year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, like I'm there, like making bets on the new people that come in to see if they make it. Yeah. And nobody bet.
That's right.
Nobody bet on me.
Right.
Shocker.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody bet on you. Had you calculated that for yourself, you would have removed yourself.
I don't like when I tell stories that prove your point.
I wanted you to tell the whole story so that I'm not trying to catch you out. I'm just saying you are the exception. You're not the rule. And that by its very nature means if you hadn't have risked.
But this is still an example of me following my talent.
Sure. Exactly. Which I think is great, which is why Rory's playing, you're number 11 of the Masters. Why he's making that shot through the trees, because he said after everything, he was like, oh, I wasn't worried about the trees this week. I knew I was hitting out of the trees really well. I had been doing it all week. That's when like all of your practice and all of your preparation, everything. So for other people, it looks very risky, but for him, it's like, no, I've done this a million times. It's like the kid who is the free climber, who I can't think of his name, the free solo movie.
The free solo guy.
I don't know. But I can't remember his name.
Alex Honnold?
Thank you. Alex Honnold, and how he talks about that all the time, and everyone's panicking like, this is so risky. But in his brain, he's done it so many times, right? Yeah. The muscle memory, same with Rory. They're not worried in the same way that you're worried. And so to your point, like, were you going to play football for Hayden Fry for defensive line? No. Did it mean you were going to stop playing football? No, you didn't stop playing football. You had a great football career. You coach football now. He didn't take that off the table for you. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about stomping on kids' dreams or not giving them, if you're not hitting the numbers by this time, then you need to rethink. No, you don't. No, you don't. You might just need to open up the space and might not have such specific blinders on to the only thing that you might be successful at. Maybe you just need to open up your perspective a little bit and get in like a zone of things that you might be able to accomplish.
I think if we combined your self-belief with my perseverance, oh my God, we would have an astounding human being.
Okay, thanks. Well, we do. 2 of them. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So final question.
Okay.
Final question.
All right.
What would you tell your younger self about quitting and perseverance? Either what would you tell your younger self? What would you tell my younger self? What would you tell our 2 children and their younger selves about quitting and perseverance?
This is a really good question because I actually did quit track in high school because I hated it so much and I was good at it.
You were good at it.
Really good at it.
But you also were measuring yourself against somebody.
Sure.
Go ahead.
My dad had me running against girls who ultimately ended up being like
Olympians.
US,
Olympians.
Like champions. Yeah.
You thought you were slow because the girl you were competing with most ended up being an Olympian.
Right. Right. In fairness, that's not realistic expectations but it didn't matter because I still was like a little kid and had the same thing. Like, I can race those girls. It'll be no problem. Yeah. Right. Except I'm way far behind. I am losing this so bad. I just didn't like it enough to keep pursuing it. Right. That's the difference. I was good at it.
Sure.
And I was running with people that were really good at this thing who ended up having a lot of success in the sport. I just didn't love the sport that much.
This is the one flaw in telling people to follow their talent.
Yes.
Because if your talent doesn't align with your passion,
Agreed. And it just didn't. And I was a fine sprinter. My sister's a great sprinter. She was an amazing hurdler. She has all these records. She's really great. She still likes to race you.
Has
in
not
her
beat
40s.
me ever.
I know. Okay. Yeah. That's a separate podcast.
When we first met, your sister was like, I'm
Yeah.
so fast. And
She was.
I was like, how fast?
Not
She's like, I'm
comparison
probably
to you.
faster than you. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's not a chance
I
you're
know.
faster than me.
You do have longer legs and you did beat her on multiple times. But it doesn't. Okay. This is where it comes from
I'm
family-wise.
also very fast.
Okay. It doesn't hold us back from trying. That's what I'm saying. She has no problem.
Your whole family has this.
Yes. She has
This
no problem,
undeniable belief in themselves that like, I'm the best at this.
Here's the thing. It served us well in life. It served us pretty well.
All right. What's the advice?
So I did quit track because I didn't like it. Not because I wasn't talented at it. So like, I was just like, this is not for me. I don't love it enough to keep doing it. I just don't. And that's good awareness to be able to tell kids. If you're doing something that you just don't really find a ton of joy in, it's okay to give them permission to be like, okay, let's table that. And I'm not saying quit because we have a deal. We've said this with our kids too. If you commit to something, you commit for the year. You commit to the full season, whatever the season is. And if you hate it, by the end of the season, then we can reassess. You don't have to do it again, whether you're talented or not. We just had this conversation with our son about baseball. You're really good at this. You may not want to do it anymore. That's fine. You have to commit to the season. Then we'll reassess. I think that's healthy to help kids. I really do. But I don't think if they don't have that year, if they're just like, oh, this sucks, I'm out of here. No way. Then they don't persevere through anything. Then you'll never get to be Rory McIlroy, at all. You're not going to be great at anything. You have to be able to persevere enough to know, where are my strengths and talents? Where are they not? But does that take everything off the table for me? No. It just helps me limit. That's information. That helps me have better understanding about where I can put my energy and time and where my joys actually live. And any information is better than none. You can't make good decisions without a lot of information. So everything that gives kids good information about decision making, they should be able to do it, and the adults in their life shouldn't be taking that off the table for them. They just shouldn't.
Okay.
All right.
Please. I think you're going to disagree with my advice.
Oh, okay. Tell me your advice.
I would tell kids, use your teens and 20s to take big swings.
Okay.
Big
Why would
swings.
I disagree with that?
Because
okay.
I put a timestamp on it.
Okay.
Use your teens and 20s to take giant swings.
Sure.
If I were to go back and tell myself, that's what I would tell myself.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, use your teens and 20s,
Sure.
take big freaking swings.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, by the time you get to your 30s,
sure.
if you've taken those swings and they haven't yielded any fruit, take a look at what pivoting looks like.
That's fair. I think that's fair and realistic. I also feel like by the time when you're in a marriage or when you're responsible for other people, then your statute of limitations of you focusing on yourself and the things you want, that starts to wane.
Yeah.
And for me, like, that's my litmus test. Although, like, okay, let's keep taking Rory McIlroy as an example. Like, he had giant success early on in his career. He wasn't married. He didn't have kids, but he had enough success early on where it didn't make sense for him to be like, oh, let's just not take those giant swings anymore, literally or figuratively.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he had hit a place in his life success wise where it's like that he's hit it. So like, you can keep taking the swings, right? Because in his teens and 20s, he did all those things to get him to that echelon.
And they worked.
And they worked.
Yes.
So now that he is married and does have a family, that's still okay because he reached the penultimate place where you can continue to take big swings.
I don't want kids, whether it's our kids, students, like, doesn't matter. Like, I don't want kids thinking what I was thinking, which is like, hey, safety is paramount.
Right. Great point.
I want them to realize, like, you get to a place where safety is paramount.
Right.
And typically it's when other people are depending on you and
when you have responsibilities.
And adulthood comes knocking.
Yeah. No one wants to be married to a Peter Pan. No one wants to be in a life with someone who's constantly taking big swings, but there's zero consistency. There's zero, like, you don't know how it's going to be from day to day. You don't know, because that's just stressful.
Yeah.
And no one wants to live in chaos. There is a statute of limitations of like, and I know a lot of adult Peter Pans who have we're gonna talk about
this in next week's podcast.
But I don't want to go there too much. But I do think your risk needs to come with a time frame. I do think that's appropriate, and that's just called maturing and growing up.
We agree on that.
All right, I'll take my 5. Yay!
That'll do it for this week's episode of Teaching Keating. Go out there, take some big swings if you're in your teens or 20s. If you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, be safe.
Play it safe.
Play it safe.
I don't know.
No? No?
Go with what life gives you.
John just laughed. He disagrees.
Go with what life gives you.
He disagrees.
Go with what life gives you and your talent.
We'll see you on next week's episode of Teaching Keating. In the interim, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button.
Yes,
as always, you can find me this week in South Carolina. Molly, where can we find you?
You're going to find me on the baseball field, although only for a matter of time because our son's going to start driving soon. It's really stressing me out. So my statute of limitation, I know. It's a real bittersweet. It's day to day, depending on how I'm feeling about it.
I'll tell you what, I'll be excited when I'm not driving everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
That'll do it. We'll see you guys next week. Be well.